folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome to the Best of Publishers series that I'm doing. And today we're going to be taking a look at Portal Games. Now, Portal Games is probably the most well-known Polish publisher. There are a lot of Polish publishers these days. When you go to Essen, I want to say there's 20 to 30 different Polish publishers making games all over the place. But Portal is the one company that has just really gone out there. Now, part of that is because of the dynamic personality of the owner of Portal Games, Ignacy Trzewiczek, who has written blogs, goes around to conventions. He's just really well known. He's a really nice guy. Both he and his wife, I've spent time talking to both of them. And Portal Games first kind of got into my consciousness when Hiroshima Hex came out. This was a game that was set in a post-apocalyptic future. It was kind of an abstract game, and if you look at Z Garcia's favorite games, this is certainly one that he loves quite a bit. Portal games have a very distinctive feel to them. They are not necessarily Euro games, although there's a lot of that influence in them. They're usually fairly strong in theming, and you can definitely see a progression of quality over the years. When Portal Games first came out, they were okay quality. Each year, they're progressively getting better. When they came out, they were kind of like, that's kind of a cute publisher, to now, this year, Martian's First Contact coming from them is one of the most anticipated games from anybody coming out this year. They are just making some major waves in the industry. They have partnered up with many different companies to bring games, and so I'm looking forward to seeing their future success. One of the games that they're very popular for having made, it's not on my list of top 10, and that's 51st State, but I thought it was important to mention this game because it is a game a lot of people liked. Another post-apocalyptic one. I think it's actually set in the same universe as Hiroshima Hex, but I'll talk a little bit more about 51st State in a second. Let's get through my top 10 games from Portal Publishing. Number 10 is Tides of Madness. Now, Tides of Time is the prequel to Tides of Madness, and I thought Tides of Time was okay. It's a micro game, but it certainly is a very good one, all right, regardless of my thoughts on it, as you are both drafting cards and trying to get the right cards, play, and get points. Tides of Madness, I thought, took that up a level. It added the Cthulhu theme, which I don't care whether it adds it or not, although the artwork is beautiful. But I liked that whole, you can also go crazy. And so there's that chance of making your opponent go insane, and then you win that way. And adding in that extra victory condition really elevated this game for me, but the game is still a great game. Number 9 is a forgotten game from Portal Games, and that's Theseus. And I would imagine this one is going to be in bargain bins everywhere, if it isn't already. Theseus, The Dark Orbit. Maybe think of Alien movies or something, but you're kind of in a space station and you're one of 4 different factions. And you are moving your pieces around this space station, and when you move a piece, you then take the action of where you move to. It's just a unique, very, very, very strategic game. But it has the same problem that Hiroshima Hex has, in which the more players, the more crazy and chaotic it gets. So Theseus with 2 players is very tactical, very thinky. It's a beautiful production and unfortunately doesn't get enough love, but I highly recommend it. Theseus, The Dark Orbit. Number 8 is Legacy, The Testament of Duke Krejci. This is a really fascinating game, although it had a very controversial mechanism in it where you're marrying people off and trying to build a family tree and then have kids, and there was a possibility of having infant mortality at birth, which could be controversial to some. That's just not a mechanism that many would think to be very fun, but you can actually ignore that if you want. The expansion even added some stuff in that you could put that out, but the rest of it, the artwork, the idea of it was really great. It's like, okay, I'm going to marry this person to this person, they're going to have this kid, and then this is the second generation, I'm going to marry them off. A worker placement game, really well done, and again, another one that seems to have been forgotten as the years go by. Number 7 is Hiroshima Hex. I've talked about it enough, might as well just put it on my list. I like Hiroshima Hex. Now, I've played almost exclusively on the iOS device now because it works so well, but in Hiroshima Hex, you have an army from the future, and you are placing hexagonal tiles on a grid, and every once in a while a war breaks off, and then you see how they all shoot at each other, and you're trying to destroy your opponent's base or have your opponent's base down to fewer hit points than yours when the game ends. Games are short, but it's like chess, okay? It's very strategic in nature. It's not perfect information because you're drawing tiles randomly and as you place them on the board, but how you place them is very important, and each faction is extremely different. They've released 7 kabillion factions, I think like 8, but there's a lot of different factions, and like I said, they each have a very cool feel to them. Number 6 for me is Imperial Settlers. This is the game that took the basics from 51st State, which was a game I thought was but Imperial Settlers brought this out into a much more fuller theme where there was 4 different factions, Rome, Barbarians, Egypt, and Japanese, and they've since added some other 2 more factions to it, Atlanteans and the Mayans. And each of these, you are playing cards, and you're using the card to build a building, which will do different things for you. Or you're using the card as resources. The cards could be used in various ways, which is something that I like. It's simple, fun, and easy. It's not a family game, but it's just a smidge above that. So it's kind of like one of those next step games into finding more strategic options. Really well done production games. I would say Imperial Settlers is a game where it was like, oh, Portal is really no longer an indie publisher. Now they're a publisher people should take seriously. That was Imperial Settlers. Number 5 is Pret-a-Porter. This game is actually being reprinted with a different theme. The original theme was about putting on a fashion show and designing clothes and then getting points. I had no problem with the original theme. I thought the original theme was unique and interesting. It just did not sell very well. So I think the new one is, about making video games, and that might be coming out this year or next, but it's coming in the future. But it doesn't matter. I thought the original theme was fine, but the underlying game, it's a fairly heavy, complex game. There's a lot of different things going on. You got to keep track of this and make sure you have the right people working for you. And how are you going to, what clothing are you going to make? There's a lot going on to it, and it's juicy and heavy, and it's an excellent game. Pret-a-Porter. Number 4 is Hiroshima Convoy. This was originally, I believe, just called Convoy, but then they stuck it in the Hiroshima universe. This is a great asymmetrical 2-player game in which one person has a convoy that they are taking from one spot to the other, and the other players are rebels trying to blow that convoy up before it gets there. And so there's card play back and forth. It's very intriguing as you get closer and closer. It feels very balanced to me. Definitely, if you've never played this one, you want to check it out. Number 3 is Stronghold, which coincidentally they just co-published with Stronghold Games. But Stronghold is a theme that I was like, what? Why has no one done this? And no one's done it since either. And that's basically a siege of a castle. I love sieges of castles. So one person is controlling a castle, the other person is bringing in orcs and goblins and things, and they're attacking. And it's a very back and forth game. I do this, you do this. There's a small smidgen of luck pulling some cubes from a bag, but other than that, it's just very strategic on, I'm going to place catapults. And each game is different because you have different, the attacker's going to bring things in, the defender can do different things, but each thing that the attacker does gives the defender more time. So the more actions the attacker takes, the more options the defender has. And you have very different, cool options, a very fascinating game with an extremely strong theme, Stronghold. Number 2 is probably the most popular game from them, and that's Robinson Crusoe. Robinson Crusoe is the most thematic cooperative game in existence. And in this game, you are Robinson Crusoe or the Swiss Family Robinson or whatever, because there's so many scenarios in it. And in this game, you're on an island and you have different things that you need to do, mostly survive, and you're going to go explore. It's a worker placement game, but it introduced an amazing mechanism where you would go explore, you would find a card, you would do something on that card, but then that card might show up later. So you might eat some berries, and later on you'll get sick from eating those berries. Or you might go take some eggs, and later on a bird comes and attacks you because they were the eggs from that bird. And I like this whole something that you do now causes something to happen in the future. And I'm really excited to see how this works in their upcoming First Martians game. But Robinson Crusoe, which the second edition of that just came out this at the very end of 2016. It is an amazing game, one of my favorite games of all time. And number 1 is another game that just came out for the first time in 2016, and that is Cry Havoc. Cry Havoc is a game, and you can see it. It's right here on the shelf behind me. I think it's an amazingly cool game. Think of Avatar, the movie, if they added in 2 more factions. There are some aliens, some big like Hulk aliens on a planet. They're just defending their planet. There are Marines coming in to mine some stuff. There's some mystic people showing up for the same reason. And then some robots show up, and their goal is basically to kill everyone. It has a really cool combat system. The game is not too long at all. It's a nice length, has amazing miniatures. There's a lot of different options that you have. The 4 factions are very, very different. A cool asymmetrical game. My favorite from Portal Games. So those are my top 10 from Portal Games. Tell me what you think your favorites are in the comments below. Portal Games is certainly one to watch as 2017 goes on. We'll see how things move in the future. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Best of Publishers.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.